Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, Democrats.
Good evening, Democrats.
I know we're still waiting for the game to wrap up, but we can probably do a little bit better than that. We're in the 89th minute of the game. I think we know how it's going. It's 2-0. Let's try it again. Good evening, Democrats.
Good evening, Democrats.
Thank you, everybody. Let's focus the attention, please. If there's house music, we can cut the music. Everybody, please find a seat. Welcome, everybody, new members and old in here, out there. My name is John Katz. I am the president of the Santa Monica Democratic Club. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for Debate Night 1 in Santa Monica. Okay. As we speak, the U.S. Men's World Cup team just wrapped up 2-0 against Bosnia and Herzegovina. Sorry for the spoilers, everybody on YouTube, if you're watching it next week. After a long primary season, we've already shifted gears fully into general election mode. Tonight, we'll be hosting candidate debates for 3 important races, which will be on Santa Monicans' ballots this November. The Santa Monica Malibu USD Board of Education, the Santa Monica College Board of Trustees, and the Santa Monica Rent Control Board. All 3 of these fields have a fascinating mix of well-known incumbents, fresh faces, brand new names, and those who are more familiar. We'll get to hear from all of the candidates at length tonight. Next week, July 8th, here in the church, we will have our City Council debate. 10 candidates, some of whom are here tonight, seeking our club's endorsement, will take the stage and face off head-to-head. Then, on July 15th, we'll host our annual endorsement meeting to vote on all 4 of these fields. We're not voting on anything tonight. It's not on the agenda, so it's not happening. We want to give people a chance to see the videos and assess all of the candidates themselves. All members who are in good standing, who live in Santa Monica or Malibu for the school and college races, and who RSVP for these meetings will get their ballots sent to them by email on the evening of July 15th. And per our bylaws, whoever gets the 55% of the vote will have the club's endorsement. Before we go any further, speaking of endorsements, let's look back at the primary results from last month. It was a challenging primary night for a lot of the candidates that we endorsed, to be honest, but we're proud of everyone who stepped forward to run. And so we want to give a special shout out to Michael Tubbs, Tony Vasquez, Nichelle Henderson, and Shai Roy for standing up for our club values and running a really hard race. Yep. We were really honored to stand with those candidates in this campaign, and we also want to congratulate those who were successful. This is the list of candidates who have advanced to the top 2 for the fall: Ted Lieu, Rick Chavez-Zabur, Shirley Weber, Rob Bonta, Malia Cohen, Mike Gibson, Robert Luna, Maria Gabati, and Ben Allen. And I want to just give a special shout out to Ben. He actually has a bit of history here. This is going to be the first ever top 2 between 2 candidates of the same party in a constitutional office in California history. So we'll see how our guy does. If he wins, he'll also be the first Santa Monican elected statewide. So a lot of history there. Now, we also want to congratulate the candidates who won outright: Lindsay Horvath, Jeffrey Prang, Tal Valbuena, Ben Forer, David Walgren, Ryan Dibble, and yes on Measure ER. Okay, so for those races that our candidates didn't advance, we'll be having additional endorsements on August 26th. Join us here again for that meeting. We'll be discussing all of the statewide and local ballot measures, and we're also going to host what I'm happy to announce tonight for the first time, a debate between John Erickson and Brian Goldsmith for the Senate race. So we're going to host the debate here on the stage, then we'll present all of the ballot measures, and then we'll vote on all of the stuff that's left for the ballot that night. August 26th. One more thing, coming up this Saturday, it's the 4th of July, and we're excited to announce it's also the 4th year in a row that the Santa Monica Democratic Club will be marching in the parade down Main Street. Now, every member of the club is invited to march with us in the parade. You just need to fill out a waiver in advance. They've been going out in our email blasts. There's also copies in the back of the room. If you'd like to get a waiver tonight, please see Kay. She can show you where it is. And Mike Soloff can also show you because it's on that table. So far, we have confirmed that Mayor Terosas, as well as Brian Goldsmith and John Erickson, will all be marching with us, and also a bunch of the candidates who are here tonight and who are seeking our endorsement. So we're really excited. This is a great opportunity. You get there a little bit before we start marching. You get to chat and mingle with everybody in the community. We're doing it in the reverse order this year. We're meeting on the beach parking lot 5 and going back up Main Street to end at the Civic Auditorium instead of the other way around. So come do it. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's great for kids, families, pets. Sadie's marched with us before. Avery has done it every year. Bring your bike, bring your scooter, wear red, white, and blue, especially blue. Don't wear something that says vote for a certain candidate. That's not allowed. And also this year, for the first time, there's an after party at Tonga Park. So lots of cool stuff to do that day. I'm really excited about it. I hope everybody comes. Wear sunscreen. As I mentioned earlier tonight, we have 3 fields of candidates seeking our endorsement. It's been so great learning about all these candidates through their questionnaires and video interviews. If you haven't checked those out, please do. They're very helpful. This year we have a field of 25 individuals seeking our club endorsement. That is very high. In 2020, we had 19 total candidates. In 2022, we had 20 candidates, and in 2024, we had 15 candidates across all 4 fields. So our board spent a very long day interviewing these candidates, and we really had a great time getting to know them. In a few moments, we will host the school board debate, followed by the college board debate after that, and finally, our headliner this evening, the rent control board. And in fact, one of those candidates from the Rent Control Board has an announcement he'd like to share with the club right now. So let's please welcome Rent Control Board candidate Brad Ewing.
Thank you, Democrats. I'll keep it short and sweet. After talking with my family, I've made the long and hard decision to end my campaign for Rent Control Board. Due to unforeseen circumstances, I don't believe I can give a campaign the full time and attention that it deserves. I'm eternally grateful for all of those who wanted to support and supported my campaign, and I'm really looking forward to see what this great crop of candidates discusses and what emerges from that tonight. So I wish all the candidates Godspeed and good luck. Thank you.
So thank you for putting yourself forward, Brad. I was really genuinely impressed by your campaign, and I don't think it's the last we'll be hearing from you. If you haven't already, check out Brad's questionnaire and interview. They're definitely worthy of your time. Before we start, I'm going to read the rules of the debate format for tonight. These are these 3 fields only. The City Council will have a separate set of rules. Each candidate will get a 1-minute opening statement as well as a 30-second closing statement. The questions have been written in advance by the moderator and the executive board with input from the membership. Each candidate has 1 minute to respond to each question. If a candidate directly references another candidate, the candidate gets 30 seconds to respond. and candidates who are wishing to briefly rebut or disagree with something another candidate has said can raise their hand, and the moderator may recognize candidates raising their hand for a 30-second rebuttal at the end of the initial 5 minutes of responses. So, time permitting. So now we're going to thank Isabel, who's going to be keeping the time. She's sitting in the front row. And Isabel will let the candidates know when there's 10 seconds left and when there's 0 seconds left. And when you get the red, when we're over, just finish your sentence. You don't have to cut it off in the middle of a word, but just wrap up. And of course, when we think of timekeepers, we think of our old board member, Peter Bradley. I'm sure he's somewhere watching this meeting and yelling out time really loudly. So, okay, let's now get to the first debate. We have 5 candidates running for 4 seats on the school board, with Richard Tvilder Jeswain announcing his retirement this year. 3 incumbents, Lori Lieberman, Alicia Mignano, and Stacy Rouse, along with 2 challengers, Harry Leshner and Robbie Steinberg. Let's welcome all of them to the stage tonight. Wherever you want. The seats are not by poll order, so.
It's not like the picture we have to mirror.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah. Can you see it? 10 seconds. Okay, so we'll start with opening statements. I have random.org with your names in there, and it will randomize each question separately. It will be a different order. So we'll start here, and the first opening statement goes to Stacy.
Hey. Hi, my name is Stacy Rouse. I am a current SMMUSD board member. I am also a grateful recipient of this club's endorsement in 2022. I'm seeking re-election, and I'm humbly seeking endorsement again this year. I'm a Malibu resident, and my 2 adult children were in the Malibu Pathway schools their entire school career. I believe the things that I set out as goals 4 years ago, I have worked diligently to do, and I am not done yet and hope to serve for another 4 years. I'm happy to talk more about what those 4 things are now or in the future, but I would like to say that one of the key things is being a bridge from Malibu to Santa Monica and from Santa Monica to Malibu. I believe this helps our communities be more connected, not divided, and we all know representation matters, and this is an area that I think is important. So I look forward to continuing, hopefully to serve, and it's been my privilege to serve these last 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alicia.
Oh, great. Okay. Good evening, Democrats. I'm Alicia Mignano, the president of the Santa Monica Malibu School Board. I was elected in 2022 along with Stacy and with this club's endorsement, and I am honored to be back asking for your support for re-election. I'm a renter. I live in the Pico neighborhood with my husband and my son, Jimmy, who is about to start 6th grade in August. I'm an immigrant, a product of our public schools, and a public school parent, and I know how transformative strong public education can be, and that is why I serve. Over the last 4 years, I've worked to put students first, protect vital student services during difficult budget decisions, and advocate for multilingual learners and our most vulnerable students. While I am proud of the work we've accomplished, there is still important work ahead of us to keep our schools strong. I would be honored to earn your endorsement and your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Lori next. And there's another microphone by your feet if you need. Okay, yeah. Go ahead. She turned it back on.
Already on. Sorry. I have served on the school board for 15 plus years with this club's endorsement every time I've run. And the natural question, obviously, is why would I want to do this again? No, I mean that seriously, though. As those who have endorsed me can attest, I've consistently relied on my skills, experience, and values to play a leadership role promoting policies that will ensure equity and excellence for all students in our schools and ensuring that all students feel welcome and receive the highest quality education we can provide, regardless of where they live or how much money or education their families have. There are 2 board members who you see who have served 1 term or running again, 2 brand new candidates, and a board member who's left, who's not running again this year. And in 2 years, there are at least 2 more board members who will not be running. I think continuity is important. I strongly believe that the school board benefits from having a mix of experience, knowledge, and skills on the board, and I believe I still have a lot to offer. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Harry next.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Harry Leschner. My wife and I have called Santa Monica home for a little over 18 years. We have 2 daughters. Our oldest just completed kindergarten at Franklin Elementary. I'm running to be a champion for families in our district. Our public schools are facing an existential threat. We've had a 25% decline in our enrollment over the last decade. To reverse this, we need a board that reflects the community that it serves. Of the 7 members today, only a single member is a current parent in the district. If elected, I would be the second, but crucially, the only member with elementary-age children. If we want to right the ship, we need board members that have firsthand experience with our schools and understand the challenges that parents face on a daily basis. Professionally, I bring over almost 20 years of experience. I bring almost 20, I think I had a few more seconds. I bring almost 20 years of experience in leading large teams and navigating complex institutional changes. I have the background to improve our struggling community engagement and repair trust in the district. I'd be honored for your endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Robbie.
Okay, yes, the second one works. My name is Robbie Steinberg. I grew up here in Santa Monica and attended our K-12 public schools. After I graduated from college, I was hired as a social studies teacher at a Title I high school in Oakland. More than 90% of my students qualified for free or reduced lunch, and I had the opportunity to see the ways our systems can fail our students, as well as the ways in which our students can succeed, even against enormous odds. After the better part of 5 years in the classroom, I had cleared my teaching credential, meaning I'm a fully credentialed teacher, and I decided, at least temporarily, to leave the classroom. I got a job working for our assembly member, the person who represents Santa Monica in the state legislature, an opportunity that has allowed me to broaden my understanding of both the state legislative and policy-making processes. I love our public schools in Santa Monica, and I believe in our ability to deliver an excellent education for all students. If elected, I will bring a new perspective to the board as the only board member who has been a K-12 teacher and the only board member who has actually attended our schools. I hope to earn your support tonight and your vote in November. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so 3 of you have served on the board while 2 of you are running for the first time. I'd like each of you to answer from your own perspective. Looking back at the board's decisions over the past 4 years, what is one significant decision that you believe should have been handled differently, and what would you have done instead? And we'll start with Robbie.
Yeah, so I've given this some thought over the last couple months as I've started discussing school board politics and policy with folks. And I think that one kind of overarching theme has emerged in those conversations. And rather than a specific policy, it's about the way those policies have sometimes been communicated, whether by district staff or perhaps by the board itself. And one thing that I would like to bring to the board is the experience from both a classroom teacher and a legislative staff member of being interested and, in fact, enjoying engaging with the community and making sure that the community understands what the district policy is, where it's coming from, and how the community input might affect that policy going forward. So I would kind of frame as around the general communication strategy of our, whether it's staff, the board, in general.
Thank you. Alicia.
Yes. spoken like an educator. I have to say, one of the things that we're so lucky in the school district to have a community that is passionate about music. Looking back, one of the areas that I think we could have, we have a new VAPA director that just came in. We had the same VAPA director for over 20 years. And when there's a change, it can be a little bit difficult. And so I think we could have engaged the community a lot earlier because our community is passionate. And I think that's one of the areas that I can think of that we could have done a little bit better. But again, having new staff, and so that's one of the things that I can think of.
Great.
Do you like me?
Thanks. Stacy, you're next.
Oh, Stacey, okay, here you go. Hold the mics.
So there's multiple things that could be discussed here. The one that I think I'm going to choose is a couple of years ago, we had something before us regarding having a policy around, and the word just went right out of my head. Oh my goodness. With our budget.
Reserve policy.
Thank you, our reserve policy. And at the time, we're a basic aid district. It's rather new for us. We're less than 10 years being permanently in that. And at the time, it's very different from being a state aid district. And a reserve policy is crucial. It is a lot of money, and it's very scary to see that much put aside. It was a thoughtful discussion, but ultimately we decided not to pass it. It has since been passed, but at that time, I felt like, again, we could have engaged differently with our partners in unions and with the community to talk about why it's important, how it would be used. It would not be used as a tool to withhold anything from anybody, but actually help us be more whole and make more sound fiscal decisions. So that reserve policy is something I wish we had done differently.
Thanks. Harry?
Yeah, first, as a new person, it's really easy to throw stones at the incumbents. And I just want to state, I'm deeply appreciative of everything that you guys have done for our children. When I think of the major gap that impacts our students today, something that is a huge deal is our lack of technology policy. I understand there were reasons why we got the Chromebooks during COVID. It's been years since COVID. The fact that we still lack a comprehensive and complete policy around acceptable use of technology in our classrooms, I think, is a major failure. LAUSD recently adopted their own policy. It's something that we should really act quickly on. And I don't think our children should be watching YouTube during school, on their personal devices, playing video games, messaging their friends without, the teacher knowing what they're talking about. There's a lot of harassment that happens on these devices, so we need to get this under control ASAP.
Thanks. And Lori?
Wow, I could agree with, in many ways, everything everyone was saying, and I don't think that there's a particular policy that I think I regret, but I think if I were to, I would have chosen to focus on what Harry did, because I too believe that while I think we're doing the right thing now and in the right way, it's still going to be rocky. We have a working group that's begun that includes parents, teachers, administrators who are reviewing the issues surrounding AI, Chromebooks, all the technology that is in the classroom or could be in the classroom. There are so many issues surrounding that. And I do wish we had started this a little earlier. We addressed the cell phone issue earlier. But I also believe that we're doing this in an SMMUSD way, which is to be inclusive and hear a lot of voices and a lot of opinions. And I don't think the LAUSD proclamation is a model for the way we do things.
Thank you. And before we move on, is there anyone who wanted to take a moment to rebut anything that anybody said?
Well, I would just rebut that there is much to be desired from the LAUSD policy, but at least it's something that it would solve a lot of the direct harms that are happening to our students today. If there was an oil spill, you would stop the oil spill and then figure out ways to do the cleanup. You wouldn't just wait and study that oil spill. This working group is great. It's a great step in the right direction. It's not happening fast enough. I have problems. There are problems with the transparency and how people were brought onto that. But we have things that we can adopt today and then study it long term.
Yes, I do want to speak to that and say that while there are families and students who don't have computer at home, who during COVID had to have hotspots, and I'm saying, there isn't one unified parent voice, and I think we are being responsible by engaging teachers and parents, working with our administrators to make the best decisions, because we have to think about all of the students and the families and the different needs. And so that's really what we're trying to do as a responsible school board, is to have as much information as possible to make the best decision for our school district and all of our kids.
Okay. Let's move on to the next question. The district is facing declining enrollment and a wave of proposed layoffs. If the district suddenly had to make drastic cuts and you could not protect everything, what is one area you would prioritize protecting at all costs, and one area where you'd be willing to concede meaningful reductions, even if it was politically unpopular? And we'll start with Stacy.
Alrighty, with first ones. All right, so we are facing declining enrollment, and while we're not directly facing a wave of layoffs, we do need to prepare for it, because it could happen, and we live with that reality every day. Nothing we do is extra, even though we are a wealthy district and we are able to fund a lot more than a lot of other schools. So anything we cut is muscle, not fat. And so we take these decisions very seriously because they matter deeply. On first hearing of this, what I would not want to cut is our teacher-student ratio. I think that's extremely important to keep. I would love a world where ours was lower. So I definitely would not want to cut that. For something to cut, I think we might have to look at some of our programs where there might be overlap and see if we can pull those in. Our sports are publicly funded through other means, so that's not something from our budget. I think it would be really difficult. It would be something we would consider important. So I hope we don't get to that point.
Thank you. Let's go to Robbie next.
Well, first, I'm going to say good question. So I think when I think about what I would be kind of most opposed to cutting, are TK through 12 core academic programs. So I think those are obviously the paramount responsibility of any school district, and those have to be paramount in what we're protecting. That includes, yes, our teacher-to-student ratio, but also includes the programs that we're using to close or to try to close gaps in outcomes. We really can't sacrifice those. I don't think anyone will want to answer the second part of the question, but I will preface this by saying that I really appreciate and respect the work that has gone into unification so far, and I think that the current board has put a lot of great work into that and into those agreements. I think those agreements are predicated on certain financial modeling of the future. If we've faced dramatic reductions in funding, I think that was the prompt, then I would feel a little uncomfortable with allowing unification, or at least voting for unification to continue if it meant significant cuts to core academic programs, et cetera.
Thank you. Let's go to Alicia.
I'm so sorry.
It's not.
It's a good one. Yes. Yeah, that's a really tough question, but I want to protect everything in the classroom and the direct services to students. So for me, I know that the district wasn't a fiscal stabilization plan before with LACO, and a lot of cuts were made at the top administrators, and so that's the type of thing that I would look at. I would also work with the superintendent and say, hey, red alert, where can we find money, and where can we, no travel, no conferences, no nothing extra. We're really focusing on the basics, and so that So those are some of the things that I think protecting the teacher, student, classroom, yeah, those are some of my ideas. And I think Lori, you're probably
Hold on, Harry's first. Okay.
So my daughter's teacher is one of the lead negotiators for the teachers union, and I've also connected with their president. And what they've told me is that in the past, whenever there's cuts, it tends to be salaries that get cut. And in this last year, there were actually some proposed cuts to reading specialists. You know, to me, the hierarchy is like protect your most vulnerable students first, protect salaries for not just the teachers, but also the service people and staff in the schools. I kind of challenge the premise of this question a little bit because I know there are different pockets of money in the way that, you know, bond measures happen versus how we fund our schools, but our school district has a $500 million bond, and we're doing construction projects all over the city, and I kind of think, it all comes out of the taxpayer's pocket. And so I think we need to protect teachers and salaries, especially those who are providing services for our most vulnerable students. If we're going to make cuts, I would sacrifice the bond money for school improvements.
Okay, thank you. And Lori, I see you shaking your head. Why don't you give your answer first, and then we'll do
Can I
rebuttal.
respond first, or you want to give my yeah, it's hard to know whether to use this time to respond to some things or not. So first I want to say to the premise of the question, our enrollment has declined everywhere, not just here, and the reasons for it are largely to do with the declining birth rate. That's well-founded and known everywhere, and then some has to do with immigration patterns and the situation with respect to immigration, and then also housing costs, I would say, here. So I think those are the real reasons. I think we believe that our enrollment has stabilized, but to take the question further, if there were some massive decline, the other thing I want to say is that it wouldn't change our funding status. We're a basic aid district, so we don't get funded based on enrollment. So it wouldn't change the amount of money we have. So there's a lot about this question that's kind of hard to get your head around. I agree with everyone who said that TK through K, core programming, teacher ratios, close to the classroom, I would not make those cuts. But if we ever got to those, I'd evaluate our programs and see which were duplicative and which didn't make sense. Can I respond to something about the salary?
The premise of the question was challenged, but I won't rebut it. We'll instead go right back to you, Lori, and then after that.
I just want to say that since I've been on the board and since I know about the board, I don't remember salaries ever being cut anywhere. So I don't know where that comes from. So I just wanted to say that. And the other one thing I wanted to say is bond money is only able to be spent on capital projects. It's not even, we can't even spend it on maintenance. It has to be spent on capital projects. So it is what it is. That's the only thing we're legally allowed to spend it on. So it couldn't be diverted to spend on teachers or other things.
Thanks, Harry.
Yeah, that's a technicality. It all comes out of the taxpayer's pocket. But regarding the declining enrollment, there's just as many children in Santa Monica today as there were 10 years ago. So the demographic shift is not the explanation. They're overwhelmingly going to school out of the district into private school. And it's actually worse in Santa Monica than it is in nationally and even in Los Angeles. So it is a problem. And then also regarding the basic aid, we are a basic aid district because our enrollment has fallen so much. But if we actually increase that, we could be a state aid district and have even more money. So we'd have more money, more teachers, et cetera.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Stacy.
I'd like to speak to the Malibu unification and cutting that. So there's guiding principles that say it is based on keeping both districts whole. There's a lot of calculations in there. If there's a big bump or a big dip that affects either community, it adjusts for that. there could be something catastrophic where that would not happen, but they have really reality tested this up and down at lots of different levels. So before we just jettisoned that because it sounded big, we'd really need to look at if it did make an impact or not, because there's probably much better ways to cut money.
Yeah, Robbie.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of agree with Stacy on that. I was speaking to the idea of this being to use your term, a catastrophic impact. But now that I know that the law is a technicality, we might find an interesting alternative.
Okay, great. Let's move on to the next question. The debate over artificial turf has divided people who otherwise agree on almost everything politically. Supporters point to drought, field shortages, and year-round athletic access. Opponents point to PFAS, microplastics, heat, injuries, and long-term environmental impacts. When those progressive values come into conflict, what principles guide your decision-making on this issue? And how do you grade the district's handling on this issue so far? We start with Alicia.
Here we go. Yes, I think this has been a hot topic in our school district. I saw that PTA took on a study, and when they took a vote, it was split. So parents, have kids that play sports and want to see their kids be active. And of course, we share our schools become parks after school, and so we share that with our city. And so it's for me, I think I would be okay with continuing what we're doing now, which is the elementary schools doing grass, and at the middle school and the high school, because of the use, I think we would have to do the turf. And I get that information from Dr. Jim Baird, who community members brought and introduced me to, and was able to come and do an explanation at the school board meeting. And so he's an expert in his field, and I'm getting that information, from him. And so I think I would follow experts and try to make the best decision for our kids.
Thanks. Let's go to Robbie.
Yeah, so as someone who is not, on the board during all of this discussion, I'm sure there are nuances that I'm not aware of, but I'll just speak as someone who's been following this from the outside. I think that my understanding is that we have a shortage of fields in Santa Monica. To me, the place to have turf are the places where our fields cannot survive the amount of play that they're getting. And if the question is, do we want to cut after-school sports programs or have turf, I think a lot of people would agree that that's an opportunity to use turf. Other than that, I think that grass is a better alternative. I think I put this in my question, I don't know, maybe I deleted it, but I can't think of much that's artificial that's better. I know some people like sweet and low, but besides that, I don't think that the artificial alternative is better in this case. And it's only a matter of necessity when we want to use our fields beyond just the school day.
Thank you. Let's go to Lori next.
I think I like the way you formulated the question, because I think it is a situation where you have different values, which we all share. We all share all of them, I would say. And so it's what do you do to weight certain things? So I would say that one of the things we're doing, first of all, I would say I look to facts and data and research and not just feelings in the end, to try to help me reconcile those things, because I do care about all of them. I would also say that the school district's recent actions to try the grass field as a temporary pilot at Franklin that Alicia was describing is an attempt to also try really hard to grow grass and keep it healthy and in the service of kids, and also give us some data to compare with other schools. And the other action, which we talked about, and the language will have to come back, but the school board talked about and agreed to do a moratorium on any new artificial turf fields on elementary school campuses. So my time's up. But
Thank you. Stacy?
Could you say again the last part of the question, or just read the whole
When
thing?
when the progressive values that are on both sides of this come into conflict, what principles guide your decision-making, and how do you grade the district's handling on the issue so far?
Okay, thank you. We have a lot of these issues where all of a sudden we realize there's passionate feelings about it. That's when we need to listen, and I think that's very important, and not just in the board meeting, although that's crucial. Also, SMMUSD is a big system, and things change on a dime and the district doesn't. So with technology, a few years ago, Chromebooks seemed like the most responsible thing, and now we're seeing there's problems with technology. Here, turf, artificial turf, seemed like the better thing to do 10 years ago, and now there's evidence saying the other. And so what we're seeing here is it's a difficult choice, and so there's safety concerns both ways. So I do think it's time to let it start with being a local issue and let the schools, what's most important to them in those places, decide, rather than having a blanket decision across the board, have policies that guide but don't restrict. And really listen to the parent voice and use. It's really important. What's it for? Be targeted and be wise.
Thanks. And finally, Harry.
I have a statement and a rebuttal.
Okay, we'll start with the response, and then we'll do the rebuttal.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This issue is probably the single issue where we have the biggest divide. So I was actually one of the authors of this Democratic Club resolution to place a ban on artificial turf that went largely ignored by the board until recently. Why is this important? The primary job of the school board is to educate our students. Why are we talking about turf? As Democrats, as much as we want to point the finger at Donald Trump for gutting the EPA, and we should, climate experts say that 75% of the Paris Climate Accords will be met by action at the state and local level. So what we do here in Santa Monica matters. The school district is one of the largest landowners in the city. What they do matters. They own a lot of land. We're covering it with plastic. Plastic is it's derived from fossil fuels. It's polluting the environment. And also, it's contributing to the bottom line of companies that overwhelmingly donate to put Republicans in office. So we shouldn't be paying any public money for this. Rebuttal?
Go ahead.
Okay, so there were 2 points. One, we're engaged Dr. Baird. He's a turf scientist. He's not a medical doctor. The California Medical Association says that children, actually people, should avoid playing on artificial turf. And again, when we talk about experts and safety, we should also be engaging doctors. When it reaches over 120 degrees on the surface, it's very unsafe to play on. You say, how often does that happen? Well, plastic absorbs heat from the sun very greatly. And so maybe 100 days out of the year, the surfaces will be over 120 degrees. The board doesn't believe that that's real. They said, we need to see if that's real because that sounds crazy. I'm kind of offended by the implication of that, but yeah, let's talk about listening to science and data.
Lori, go ahead.
I think it's kind of offensive to talk about the school district and the school board as covering the land in plastic. That's clearly not what's happening, and it's clearly not why we're doing what we're doing. As Robbie, I think, tried to describe, I will say, we're trying to meet the needs of our community. And if all we had to do was serve students during the school day, we might be able to have grass everywhere, and I think we'd all prefer that. The problem is the city has not been able to come up with the facilities to support the sports and recreation needs of this community. That includes private schools who use our schools' facilities. That includes adult teams, kids' teams that go on into the night and onto the weekends. And that's the only reason we have artificial turf, which, by the way, the first artificial turf field, I think, was put in like 2003 or something. It was long before any of us were here, and my time's way over, so I'm sorry.
Well, we're going to go to Stacy first because she hasn't spoken yet on this.
Well, I have
Well,
spoken,
you haven't
but the rebut. So just briefly, Dr. Baird is his entire report is about natural turf, not about artificial turf. Point taken about the doctor, but he is completely about the turf. And I was so amazed the care that could happen. It gave me such hope for what we could do. So.
Okay, and were you going to get in the queue, or? No. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, just the district report, 12 acres of field spaces covered in artificial turf. It's also under a lot of the play structures and even in flower beds, so I don't think my statement was an exaggeration. Also, the playability of the fields, it's a false premise. It parrots turf industry propaganda. If you can't play on the fields 100 days of the year, then what good are they?
Okay, thanks. Alicia?
Yes, I just want to speak to I think the surfaces underneath the play areas. I think for parents, most parents, safety is the major issue. And so we tried doing a different type of surface at Grant Elementary, and we had a lot of broken arms. And so I think for parents want, first and foremost, their kids not to be breaking arms. And so we are looking at alternatives and seeing what we can do, and we're willing to work and listen to community members. I think, Harry, you know that. So we're trying to do what is best for our kids and our entire community here.
Okay, I think we'll leave it there. Let's go to the next question. Since the Noguera-era equity findings, the district has invested heavily in multiple strategies to close achievement gaps. In your view, what is the single most persistent structural barrier that those strategies have failed to solve, and what would you change about how the district is currently addressing it? And we will go to Robbie first.
Like I keep getting all the tough questions first. No, in terms of structural barriers, I mean, I graduated from Santa Monica High School in 2014, which was 2 years before that report was published. And those disparities were very much real in my classes. I mean, I was in AP classes that were almost entirely white and Asian, despite the diversity of high school. So the first step is acknowledging the reality of the differences and the disparity in outcomes. I think from there, one of the experiences that I had as a teacher was the massive differences in what students are doing outside of school, and thinking about what the district can do to close those gaps. You know, I mean, a summer program for one student, a summer break for one student is an enormous opportunity for enrichment, and for another student, it's the summer slide, where academics fall behind. So what can we do to close those gaps? And I think there are a lot of enrichment programs that perhaps we can, that when the city is a little bit more solvent, we can ask the city to help pay for after the parcel tax, perhaps. But there are a lot of programs that I think we could use to try to address that and close that outside of school gap.
Thanks. Let's go to Harry next.
First of all, I want to say I think this is an area where the board has taken a lot of really commendable steps, and so I want to thank them for that. The reality is the achievement gap still exists, and on this, I actually do agree with Robbie quite a bit. There are enrichment programs that are provided by the district, but as the CREST programs, as our teacher described it, they're hotter spots in those CREST programs are hotter than Taylor Swift tickets. You got to be on your computer at 6:01 a.m. to sign up for it. So, I mean, I think we have a framework. Like, let's just expand capacity and access to that. Because what I see is two systems where if you have the means, you can send your kid to private, paid for, extracurricular enrichments, and then everybody else is just kind of left fighting over whatever's left. So.
Thank you. Alicia.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Since the Noguera-era equity findings, the district has invested heavily in multiple strategies to close achievement gaps. In your view, what is the single most persistent structural barrier that those strategies have failed to solve, and what would you change about how the district is currently addressing it?
I think we've done a lot of good work. I think one of the issues is that we are continuously getting new students and that are coming through, and we are trying to identify the needs as quickly as possible to meet them. And then, so, for example, when it comes to English language learners, that's one of the areas that I think we've seen a lot of growth. We've got parents involved, and for example, just something as simple as putting on a report card the progress that the student is doing, and being able for teachers to communicate that with the students. But there's so many other things that we could do, and I think there's so many things. Our language literacy interventionists, that's one of the things where we might disagree as board members, but I think those are key positions to protect. And being able to read by third grade, research shows is really important for outcomes for students. And so those are some other things that I think have big impact.
Thank you. Stacy?
I worked as a site manager for Jumpstart for 5 years before I was on the board, and it is an early literacy intervention program. Kids from the very beginning can come with huge word gaps in their very earliest years and coming to us at different levels. That's just one example. There's lots of ways where people come different. I think as much as possible to acknowledge where there are differences or lack or gap or whatever it is, and not have it be an insurmountable barrier. So I do think these programs are super helpful. I think attitude helps a lot. Teachers who come into a classroom and everyone comes and is seen as equal, known for who they are and different, they thrive differently in that classroom than in a classroom that it doesn't have that space. We have excellent teachers, and that is not going to fully do it. It's going to be a multi-pronged partnership between how do we teach, how do we overcome gaps, and how do we accept people where they are. I feel like we're doing a good job. It is not enough. I think we've got to really look to how to do it different. It's going to take some creativity.
Thanks. And finally, Lori.
I mean, as the question even recognizes, we've done a lot of things and we continue to do them. And one of the things that Dr. Noguera said was you needed to have consistent leadership and coherence across the district and to continue to do these things over the long haul. So I think we're trying to do that. If there's not a magic solution to the fact that what I would call the greatest structural barrier, which is that some students have families who are able to put them in enrichment programs, to hire private tutors, to have private coaches, to take them to Europe during the summer, to do all kinds of things that not everyone in the district has a family that can provide. So to the extent that we can try to make up for some of those things that we can't do during the school day, find ways to, that's true. And that is one of the things I was going to say. One of the after-school programs that is funded by the state is the Enhanced Learning Opportunity Program, which is only money that goes towards people of low income who can afford those programs. So that's an after-school opportunity, but to the extent we can find other ways to prop up tutoring, which we were able to do with extra funding during the pandemic, to find ways to support summer enrichment. We can't force people to go to a summer school or things like that, but if we can offer engaging, exciting things at very low or zero cost, that's what I think we have to look to do.
Sorry. Okay, thank you. So it seemed like there was broad agreement on that. Any rebuttals needed? Okay, we'll move to the final question before closing. Given the rapid adoption of AI tools among students, do you believe the district should primarily restrict, integrate, or actively require AI use in instruction at certain grade levels? What is one specific policy you would implement immediately to reflect that stance? We'll start with Alicia.
I think what the school district is doing now, having the working technology group, is great. I think that there is potential with AI, differentiated instruction, real-time feedback, free and teacher time. But I think we need to be intentional and deliberate. And then any framework needs to align with our mission, our values, equity, belonging, et cetera. And for me, two things that are key are student data privacy protections, equity focus, and whatever we do, teacher professional development.
Thank you. Robbie.
Yeah, I think in his questionnaire, I think Harry made a good point about AI, which is that, we can't think that we're not using AI when we're doing all sorts of different programs. So I would separate this a little bit to say using a large language model like ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude in the classroom. I don't really see the application there. But using AI-enhanced classroom programs, that can be really transformative. So for example, if you are in a math class and you miss a day or miss a week of instruction, you never learned how to do long division, and then you're moving forward and the rest of the class is moving forward and there's no chance to catch up. But with AI-empowered, say, math programs that you're doing on the computer or at home, you're able to, the program is able to identify the hole in your knowledge, give you customized problems until you're ready to move forward beyond that. So there's an enormous promise there. There's an enormous opportunity on an educational level. But that has to be paired with restrictions on the mass use of, say, just large language models where I'm asking, I wouldn't do this, but asking ChatGPT to write my AP essay, right? And then ChatGPT is going to write an unfortunately good essay. And from friends of mine who are still in the classroom, it is becoming increasingly difficult to tell when AI is writing that paper. So that obviously has no place, and then we're going to see a return to blue books and things like that. And in class, if you don't know what a blue book is, in class essays. But I think that's the policy, and it has to have a pretty strong degree of nuance when we're looking at the different applications of AI.
Thank you. Lori.
I don't think I can say it better than that, but I'll try my way of saying it, which is that I think you said, would we restrict, integrate, or actively, what was
Require.
Require. I can't imagine actively requiring, and I think it's going to be a nuanced question about when we restrict it, when it gets integrated, who's using it, teachers or students. I do think, again, and as with a lot of educational technology, certainly it's not appropriate in the early grades. So I think the question is really about later grades and what grade levels and who and when and how. And I will say that as part of the first technology working group session, I spent some time talking to a middle school teacher who just tried an experiment this year that I'm not going to be able to cover in 10 seconds, but he basically said, we're not using computers, we're not using anything in this class. We're going to handwrite, we're going to talk to each other, we're not going to use anything. And he had an incredible experience with that, and it really moved me in terms of part of the conversation we need to continue having.
Thank you. Stacy?
So I think there probably are elements of all three, of where we restrict, where we integrate, and where we require. But I think we need to be very careful and look at it. In terms of like large language models, you don't want to use it to bypass critical thinking skills, but learning prompts and how to help it be additive and how to have it be a group activity with people, I think is an important thing to learn. I think we have to be really careful with data privacy. I think we have to be very careful with real life and relationships, that it doesn't secede that. And the schools have a history of, we are strapped on cash. If we're able to get things cheaply, we take it. That can have a grave cost. We can sell out things trying to get technology we know could help our student. I think we need to be very careful what we contract for and why and how it's used, and look at it long term.
Thank you. And Harry?
So I guess another differentiator for me, I happen to be an expert on this topic. I'm on a board of a STEM nonprofit that serves students from underestimated communities, and I just spoke on a panel on this topic. Try not to get too into the weeds on it, but I mean, essentially, AI has the potential to create a lot of harm to our kids, and actually just physiologically how it can rewire their brain. So we need to be really, really careful on how it's implemented, especially in the elementary and middle school level. I mean, the reality is there's no policy or guidelines in our district today. And so teachers are doing, they're kind of left to figure it out on their own. And so there's different experiences in different classes with different teachers. full stop. We need a policy, no AI in schools, like starting tomorrow, while we figure out how to incorporate it for benefits. There's probably more uses to allow teachers to offload their workload, but we need to be really careful. There's a huge danger to our children using this stuff.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to closing statements. First, 30 seconds each. First up, Harry.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Again, I bring the parent perspective. My kids are actively in the schools now. If elected, by the time the term is over, I will have 2 daughters attending elementary schools here. I also have a very broad and deep professional experience that I think will help repair community engagement and just provide like a financial and operational rigor. I have a very detailed policy platform, so I can't get it all out today, but please go to my website, Leshner for smmusd.com. Please read my Dem Club questionnaire. It's 24 pages long, so maybe get a glass of wine while you read it.
Okay, Alicia.
Yes, thank you so much. Again, I'm Alicia Mignano, president of the school board. I think there's a lot of work to do still, and I hope to earn your endorsement and your vote. Thank you.
Okay, Stacy.
My name is Stacy Rouse. I have so appreciated the last 4 years of being able to serve. I really want to be able to continue to serve the next 4 years and be that crucial bridge between Malibu and Santa Monica in our Santa Monica Malibu School District. I do think I bring communication and listening and conflict skills that are vital in these times and in these places. I think I've made a positive difference and would continue to do so. I would very much value your endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you. Lori?
Thank you. We have a very strong district that serves students and families from all kinds of backgrounds, and most of them I would call working families, and we all believe we serve working families. Some have lots of support and resources at home, and others have next to none. I believe my skills, my understanding of the variety of district schools and populations, my values, and my collaborative style will strengthen our school board as it addresses the challenges we face, some of which we've talked about tonight. I understand the issues. I'm an inclusive, thoughtful leader, and I'm committed to fact and research-based decisions in service of the district's mission. Extraordinary achievement for all while simultaneously closing the achievement gap.
Thanks. And finally, Robbie.
Well, thank you for having me. I think our district benefits from a range of perspectives, and I'm committed to engaging with our community to ensure that concerns are heard, listened to, and really considered. In turn, I hope you will consider the benefits that might come from adding someone like me to our school board, a former classroom teacher with experience in the state legislature who also attended our K-12 schools. Thank you for your consideration. I would love to talk to you after, and I'd love to hear what you think we can be doing better in the district and what we should be focusing on going forward. Thank you.
Thank you to all the candidates. We really appreciate it. And if you guys, let's pose for a group photo, all 5 of you with the camera. And then while we're doing this, I'm seeing that all of the candidates who are debating here, I think, are present. So if everybody wants to come up, we can get one big group photo for the college and rent board too before you guys leave. We'll just get all 15. Even Brad, he was here. Hey, let's do it. Come on up, Tom, Shai, Brad. Even you get to come up for this. Big group picture of everybody. Okay, and then we'll move on to the college board in just a moment, of course. Even Oscar, don't be shy, don't be bashful. Is that everybody?
We may need 2 rows.
You may need 2 rows. You may need 2 rows. Come on up here, please. Okay, thank you to all the school board candidates one last time. Really appreciate it. Yeah, you guys can stay. So now we'll, as the college board candidates get seated, we'll move to that discussion. Tom, come on back up. We again have 5 candidates running for 4 seats, with Nancy Greenstein announcing her retirement. We have 2 elected incumbents, Cheyenne Roy and Tom Peters. We have, along with 1 appointed incumbent, Luis Barrera Castañon, and 2 challengers, Kira Blades Snell and Oscar De La Torre. Let's welcome all 5 of them, please. Okay, let's go to opening statements. You have 1 minute each, and we'll start with Tom.
Okay, hi, I'm Tom.
Hold on, let's get you a mic.
Hello, I'm Tom Peters, and in the last 4 years that I've been on the board, I've had a very satisfying role shaking hands with hundreds of students every year at commencement time. It gave me a great thrill. I love doing it. I managed to get smiles out of most of them. And we all know special moments are rare, and life is life. As an SMC board member, life has had moments of sadness and grief. Sadness, when I shook the hand of an associate dean recently who was laid off and asked how he was doing, looking for a job. It hurt. And when it comes to grief, it's even worse. When Felicia Hudson was murdered on our Center for Media and Design campus, I knew Felicia. I worked at the college for years. And I cannot go by the Stewart Street campus without thinking of her. And so I say that just to say that this is hard and meaningful work, and that I'm lucky because I'm like my dad, who worked really hard his whole life, and he said he did it just because it was the right thing to do.
Okay, thanks. We'll go to Shai next. And just to be clear, Isabel's got the timekeeping. She'll let you know when you have 10 seconds and when the time's up. Shai, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to start by saying thank you to the club. We all know that I didn't finish in the top 2 of the state Senate race, and I just want to say how grateful I am to the members of this club for all your support for me and our family in the election over this past year and a half, and just a lot of gratitude. It was a frustrating result, as you can imagine, and one of the rewarding things with the result is being able to stay engaged and try to continue my time on the college board and help navigate the college through a really difficult situation, a really difficult fiscal situation, so that we can, sort of come out the other side and in the best way possible for students, faculty, staff, and the surrounding community. So I'm grateful to be here, and thank you.
Okay, Kira.
Thank you guys for having me. My name is Kira Blades Snell, and I'm running because I believe education opens doors. As a first-generation college graduate and immigrant of Belize, I've experienced firsthand how education can transform lives. Since moving to Santa Monica 9 years ago, I have dedicated myself to giving through nonprofit leadership, community service, and education. As executive director for SMBEA, I've worked hard with hundreds of individuals, helping to connect them with housing, workforce development, education, and critical resources. One of my greatest accomplishments that I'm very proud of is the founding of Empower Her Entrepreneurship Program. I wrote the curriculum, the textbook, and I personally teach a 10-week program. As of today, I've graduated 27 women entrepreneurs. As a trustee, I believe I will bring collaborative leadership, sound judgment, fiscal responsibility, and a commitment to keeping students at the center of every decision. I will listen, ask thoughtful questions, and work to ensure Santa Monica College continues to provide the opportunity to every student who walks through the doors. Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks, Oscar.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Oscar de la Torre. When I was elected student body president at Santa Monica High School, I decided to commit my life to public service. I'm born and raised in this city, product of the public school system here, from Will Rogers, John Adams to Santa Monica High School, and also Santa Monica College. So I have the unique experience of being a former student of Santa Monica College and an employee as well. I'm joined here with my two sons, Oscar Jr., who is graduated just from Santa Monica College on his way to UC Berkeley, and also Fidel. Yes, round of applause for that. And Fidel de la Torre, who's a student body president right now for the junior class at Santa Monica High School. And I'm very proud of my boys. And that's why I'm doing this, because I totally understand the power of public education. I served 18 years on the school board. I'm very proud to hear about the Noguera report, the Equity Fund, all the initiatives that I worked so hard to bring forward. I also served on the city council. I'm a former president of the California Latino School Board Association, former chair of the West Side Council of Governments, 25 years serving our youth here through the Pico Youth and Family Center, and I hope to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, and now we go to Luis.
Buenas noches, Luis Barrera Castañón, and I also want to acknowledge just all of our staff that today they're not coming back to a job because we had to lay off, and so just the impacts that has to their families and to their communities in that way. But so I'm an immigrant from Guatemala. I grew up in Culver City and went to school in the LAUSD system. And it wasn't until after high school that I started to find my way, and I was on my trajectory to become a plumber. That was my life trajectory, until someone said I should go to Santa Monica College, and I found it through the buses that signed worked for me, and I came to Santa Monica, signed up, found out that there wasn't any construction classes, but by that point I was hooked, and I became a student. I became a student body president at Santa Monica College, so a fellow elected student body representative. And I was a student there during 2002 to 2003, and the impacts of those layoffs really stayed with me, and that was one of the reasons that I wanted to come back to Santa Monica and run for board of trustees. There's more to that, but thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so just in case anyone came in late, there is the opportunity to do a rebuttal. We're going to ask the question. Everyone will get their 1 minute full answer. And then if you heard something you want to dispute or disagree with that someone else said, after the 5 minutes, then you can raise your hand and we'll continue the discussion as long as it's needed. So let's move on to the next question. SMC serves many purposes: preparing students to transfer to 4 years, providing workforce training, supporting students' basic needs, serving the broader community. If 4 years from now the college had made significant progress in only one of these key areas, what would you want it to be, and why should it be the board's highest priority? And we will start with Shai.
4 years from now, what I hope will happen is that I hope this year we're at the nadir of our fiscal situation that has affected so many faculty and staff and their families, and also just students who are served by these important members of the SMC family. And I hope that we're in a place 4 years from now where we're expanding programs to offer to students in our community, both in Santa Monica and the surrounding catchment area. And then B, I also hope that 4 years from now, we are well underway for construction on a student housing project at our Bundy campus. And so I think those two things would be really, make for a positive next 4 years.
Thank you. Akira?
Okay, so for what I think should happen 4 years from now, I'm actually to piggyback off of you a little bit, is definitely more affordable housing and student housing. And I think one of the things that we need to work on also is workforce development for the students. Many times I think students, especially the ones that come into my nonprofit, they kind of fall in the cracks that they cannot afford to live here and they cannot afford even to pay their bills. And even going to college, they cannot, finish because of the fact that they cannot do what they need to do to survive. So I think workforce development would be a big component that we should implement into the college. Working with the city, working with our, local resources, a tourism board, and the hotels, and develop something that can have them go from students into the workforce.
Thank you. Luis.
Excuse me. I can't wait for 4 years from now because, one, Trump will be in office, and that's one of the biggest barriers that we have with international education and getting students to come to our campus. So I know fiscally we'll be much better at that point, but I'm really excited about the steps that we've taken already to address just our financial health. I think there's a realization, I think there's now an attitude to really try to figure out that piece and tap into the funding formulas that exist for us to be solvent, and not just solvent, but also invest in programs. So I can't wait for that. I think we have an amazing opportunity, and I agree with Kira on the workforce development side, right? I think since our Dean of Workforce Development left, we have maybe one person that's funded out of our general fund in workforce development, and we just need to change that. If that's our values, we need to really look at how do we create more in workforce development, how do we upskill our community, how do we really reskill our community, and think more innovatively around education, and I really can't wait for that in the next 4 years.
Thank you. Tom.
Yeah, I think that's hard. Well, 4 years from now, I think not so much programs, because I think all the programs are connected in such a way that the students that come to us from all over the county are looking for different things. What I'd like to see in 4 years is movement in Sacramento and in the chancellor's office and the funding formula. It needs reform. This roller coaster ride we go through year after year after year makes it very hard to serve our students as well as we'd like to serve them, give them the services they need. So I think the answer 4 years from now is a Sacramento in legislation more than it is programs.
And Oscar.
So 4 years. I understand that the college is still going to have to make budget cuts, so it's very difficult to talk about sort of vision and programs. So really important for me, protecting student services and SMC's emeritus program from budget cuts. So holding the line, on those programs that we value in our community. Strengthen partnerships for P through 16 education. So we have an antiquated view of public education. We talk about K through 12. And we need to start looking at it from P through 16. So early childhood development all the way to at least 4 years of college after high school. So having that education coalition set up in partnership with the city, with the school district, the community college, and our universities, I think is very important moving forward. The other thing is that about 4%, from my understanding, 4% of all the students at Santa Monica College are residents of Santa Monica or Malibu. And so I want to create a resident worker retraining initiative for the jobs of the future. So making sure that we are, retraining the workers and our residents so that they can thrive in the new economy.
Thank you. Does anyone have any to rebut anything, or can we move on? Okay. So beyond simply providing access and keeping tuition affordable, what should SMC be judged on in concrete terms? Completion rates, transfer rates, job placement, time to degree, or something else? Which metric is the best indicator of whether the college is doing a good job, and what is one specific change you would make specifically with an eye on improving that outcome? Shai.
The really big problem with funding formulas and tracking outcomes is that the students who come to Santa Monica College and community colleges across the state identify success in different ways. And so, for example, we're very proud of our #1 transfer rate to UC, to Columbia, places like that. And that's really important for the students who are going to those institutions. but it's the minority of our students. And so, you know, a substantial portion of our students measure success from their community college experience in different ways. And we have to figure out ways, not just at Santa Monica College, but as a state, to capture that success, you know, whether it's workforce programs, certificates, whether it's just, you know, taking a class or two to develop skills to, you know, to take some sort of a job that doesn't involve a certificate. How do we capture that? And some of that is, you know, post-survey data, and we just need to get better alumni and people who matriculate out, better measures for, were you successful? Did you achieve your goals at Santa Monica College? And the state has to do a better job of capturing that, because the funding formulas right now are really based on, you know, I don't think that they measures outcomes in a way that substantially makes community college programming better.
Thanks. Tom?
Yeah, Shai's made a really good point of...
What was that, sorry?
Our chair, Shai, makes good points all the time. But yes, you know, it's complicated. We do the best we can. Any particular program is important to any particular student that's in it. Those that work hard within those departments are proud of what's going on in those departments. So I always have a hard time with questions like this, because it's trying to look at something that I don't think is there. When I look around, when I worked there for 15 years. By and far, the majority of people there have the best of intentions, are working as hard as they can, are connecting with students, whatever program they're in, whether it's transfer, it's career. I was on the Career Tech committee for many years, and we did a lot of great things with Perkins grants and getting a lot of equipment in classrooms that, like our photography program, our film program is like a next to none right now. It competes with finer films schools in the East. So yeah. I'm dodged the question, but sue me.
Clock ran out. Let's go to Oscar.
It's a very important question, because Santa Monica College is known for, you know, being the #1 transfer school to the UC system. We don't talk a lot about retention. You know, the dropout rate, for example, how many students are dropping out. And I can tell you, because I consider myself somewhat of an expert in this field. I wrote my master's thesis on how do you integrate public universities with effective retention programs. And so UCLA has a model program, the AAP program, and so we're proud of that program. But we need to start talking about that, because as part of the enrollment problem, we're losing students. I mean, after the first semester, after the second semester, and there's various reasons why students can't continue, mostly economic. So we need to really understand like why students are dropping out. That's something that I really want to focus on, bring a lot of attention to that issue so that we can help students succeed. And that to me would be one of the most important indicators of student success is how fast they can graduate and how long we keep them, you know, so that the dropout rate to me would be very important.
Thanks. Kira?
So I actually totally agree with you, Oscar. I do believe that before we even get to college, one of the things that I think that we need to work on is getting the children into college. I think for minority students, especially, we need to start creating the hype, you know, from the time they're in grade school. Especially with minorities, I remember, you know, my mom telling me from a very young age, me and my sisters and my brothers, that, you know, she's a single mother and she's struggling, and she's like, I don't want this for you guys. Education is the way. Education is the way. And I noticed with even a lot of minority people that come into my organization, they do not see education as important as getting their kids to get turning 18 and do some type of work. So I think we need to partner with the other school districts and to start doing programs to encourage children to go to school and college.
Thanks, Luis.
First, I think California has the best higher educational system in the country, and that includes the community colleges. I think the top-down approach that the Chancellor's Office uses to create, like the funding formula, already has 32 metrics, if not more, embedded within it. We just need to align to those metrics, because a lot of the metrics include equity, includes some of the basic needs piece, includes transfer, includes all those pieces. We just need to understand where we are as a college and how we're moving towards it. And right now, we don't have a way of doing that. There is no central data, repository, dashboard, data system that we can go to and say, how have we done over time since this formula has been created, and what has been our steps to address those gaps? And so I think we just need to really look at our system, align to those metrics, trace them over time, and see how we're meeting them, and where do we need to adjust, and how do then we bring all stakeholders into that conversation. But I think that the state has already created a well thought out system that has those metrics already embedded in it.
Thank you. Okay. Looking back over the past several years of budgeting, what do you believe are the most consequential decisions that led SMC to its current financial position with a projected $14.7 million deficit? What is your assessment of how the board has handled long-term budgeting, and how does your fiscal approach differ from others on this stage? And we start with Tom.
Great question. I have to look back at around I think it was the time when we got a lot of money from being on hold harmless over the years. I mean, our fund balance at one time, correct me if I'm wrong, it was like $40 million. And how it went from 40 million to 17 is a story of having too much money and spending too much money and not thinking long term. I wasn't on the board then. I'm sure it was just as complex and crazy as it seems like to me now, so I don't want to throw any blame anywhere, but that was a huge setback, is to have that much help from the state that early on in COVID, and then have it completely wiped out practically.
Thanks. Luis?
I'll agree with Tom that was probably the most consequential, going from $40+ million in reserves to now try and make sure that we don't meet that 5% threshold with the state, so that the state doesn't take us over, right? I think there was so much that we probably needed to look at, but I'll agree that it's so complex, right? There's so many things that are happening at the global level. COVID was taking place during that time. We're trying to keep staff as well. And the decisions at that time just made sense. And if you look at it, you could track it, it did make sense. But I think for me, how I would approach it differently is really looking at forecasting. Will this money be better spent in other areas that can grow revenue, that can create programming that is for the times? I think for me, I would be more data-driven in that way, and just really looking at all the possibilities that exist before making a decision to do fixed cost on temporary funds.
Thank you. Akira?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Looking back over the past several years of budgeting, what do you believe are the most consequential decisions that led SMC to its current financial position with a projected $14.7 million deficit? And what is your assessment of how the board has handled long-term budgeting, and how does your fiscal approach differ from others on stage?
So I actually think the current board is actually doing a great job. I think one of the things that, you know, as a board member, you do have to make difficult decisions. And Rob Rader kind of said it best when he said that this budget crisis has been happening for some years now, and it was ignored because, you know, staff reports made changes of which the board thought would have helped and worked. But, you know, as an entrepreneur, I think that you should do a little bit more oversight when it comes to budgeting, and if something was shown back then that it was wrong, they should have jumped in a little bit more and try to figure that out a little bit more. So I would probably do a little bit more oversight and just be more engaged and more hands-on with that. Yeah.
Thank you. Shai.
You know, in my tenure on the board, we've had complex issues that have impacted the budget. You know, we had COVID, which had positive one-time money on our, our school's budget, but also impacted enrollment. We've had the Trump administration, which has really affected international student enrollment for the college as well. And then we've had a state budget that has, been a roller coaster, has gone up and down over the past 8-10 years. And, state government budgets they're year to year, and I'm always very cognizant as I make decisions that the consequences of these budget decisions are the people who are serving the college. And, looking back on my tenure, every time that we had budget negotiations, every time we had negotiations with the faculty, with the CSEA, I was always cognizant they work very hard for our students, and they deserve as much, salary recognition and value as we can possibly give them with the budget that we have at the time, because the economy fluctuates, the state budget fluctuates, events fluctuate. And, we came upon this year where we did have to take measures that were very hurtful to so many people and so many families at the college. I'm very hopeful that with the improvement in the state budget, that those measures hopefully will not have to be taken again in the near future.
Thanks. And Oscar.
Yes. Well, after serving 18 years on the school board and 4 on the city council, it's always been structural deficits, for the most part. So I'm very familiar with the concept that, one-time funds should not be budgeted in a way, you're going to run out of the money, bottom line. You don't, the one-time funds are for one time, maybe for an annual, maybe a little more than that. But we need to find a way to look at public-private partnerships to fund new initiatives that benefit our students, because we just don't have the money to do it. So we're going to have to seek those partnerships, advocacy at the state level, to make sure that we get more funding for the community college system. And in terms of my approach, equity will be my compass. I'll be an advocate on the board for students of greatest need, so making sure that we do everything that we can to break the chain of generational poverty. I mean, we heard from the school board members earlier that really the issue is income for a lot of these students, and so we want to change that.
Thank you. Okay. So each of you talk about the lack of housing as a barrier to success. Yeah, I'm sorry. Let's go ahead.
I think that most of our funding comes from the state. And so I think that we need more power in Sacramento, and I think we would all agree on that. It was part of the reason I ran for state senate. The community colleges need more oxygen in Sacramento, and there's just not enough. And because of that, when there are cuts, they affect community colleges, and there's not enough people up there advocating for our programs that serve so many middle-class California families. And I think that is really the key going forward.
Thank you. Okay, so each of you have talked about housing in your questionnaires on the stage tonight as a key barrier to success, but there's differences of opinion among the 5 of you about how the college should solve it. So rank these approaches and priority for SMC over the next few years: building student housing, subsidizing students off campus, partnering with the city to develop new housing. Would you still support your number 1 approach if it required higher density near campus or faced neighborhood opposition? Start with Oscar.
Housing is obviously unaffordable in our city, for sure, throughout the state. And it's putting a lot of pressure on everything else. So we have property on the Bundy campus, so I think that's appropriate for us to do housing there. The other thing too, though, is that the city, through the housing element, I mean, we're building housing. There's developers that are, they have to have at least 10, to 15% of units that are affordable. We need to work in partnership with the city and the housing department to prioritize students as well, to make sure that we can get some of our students in that housing. The goal is to create self-sufficiency and reward that type of behavior. Somebody that's working to get their education, definitely deserves an opportunity to finish their education so they can be self-sufficient. I want to reward that type of behavior.
Thank you. Tom?
Well, I think what we haven't realized yet is what we're going to do with student housing, with the bond as it is. And it was slowed down by this partnership we tried with UCLA, and it sort of fell apart. But when I think about that, we needed their management expertise, but it was going to cost us part of the housing. It was a joint effort, and they were going to use it. But what's on the books now is the possibility of, if we were to maximize what we can do on the Bundy campus, and correct me if I'm wrong, 3 or 4 buildings. I mean, 700 beds apiece. And my vision of, if we could get that type of capacity, we can have what we promised the voters in 2022 when we pitched the bond, was that we were going to help our unhoused students. And we do that by having some market rates, some affordable rate. We have to subsidize very, very low rates for those students that are suffering most from housing insecurity. So what we have on the books so far can happen. It's just happening at a painfully slow rate, as most projects do. But down the road, I think what we can do on the Bundy campus alone can be pretty phenomenal.
Luis?
For me, it's student housing, but I think all of them are connected. With the passage of AB 648 this last year, we have an opportunity to really think creatively about our properties, our real estate, and see what solution housing can come from, and that includes our main campus, that includes all the properties that we own. And so I think that helps us solve for student housing, and it is a subsidy, right? We need to provide subsidies for our students that are most in need, and we have great students we have a very economically diverse student population, so there's others that can afford the housing, can afford some of the housing in that way, that can subsidize all of our students. And then we need to look at partnerships with the city. I think the city has properties, right, that we can do something creatively with now that we have this opportunity through this new law. And I think all of that then creates more opportunities for us to think beyond just student housing and really look at employee housing, right? Look at staff housing. We have a lot of partners with the college. I think about the Growing Place and students who graduate and then work there but can't afford to live here, and so they have to commute 2 hours in that way. So I think there's a lot for us to do.
Thank you. Kira?
Okay, so you said 3 different types of housing, and how would I prioritize them? So I think I would prioritize with the city and the subsidizing, and then building. And I say building because not that I don't think that that's the most important, but I think it's going to take the longest to become a reality. Then subsidy, we can work with Community Corp. They have hundreds of buildings. Somehow we could probably try to figure out how to partner with them and create a database with them for our students. And the first one is the city, as Luis and everybody's saying, we do have a lot of empty buildings. We should be able to somehow put some beds in there and create immediate housing for our students. That's how I would do it.
Okay, and finally, Shai.
I'll be really focused on getting our housing project on the Bundy campus all the way through to fruition. I give credit. Barry's in the back there. Barry gets a lot of credit as well for getting us to where we are. And we would have, a few years ago, we had an opportunity to get state funding to help build this housing. That fell through with the budget cuts. Then we had a partnership with UCLA that fell through because they backed out of the deal. And now we are looking, it's about the financing. We have the project, we have the opportunity for the students. What the solution is not is students living in cars in community college parking lots. And that's the solution that was offered by the state. And the state needs to commit to unhoused students. That's no way to get an education. And so we need greater state commitment, and we'll have to explore public partnerships to get this to fruition. But I know that the majority of the board has been, and the administration has been committed to this. And this is a separate pot of money, this is a separate pot of money than our the fiscal situation with our faculty and staff. So it's separate from that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, going to the last question. The new board will likely be responsible for selecting a new college president. How should trustees balance professional search committee recommendations, faculty, community input, and their own independent judgment? And what would cause you to reject the search committee's top recommendation? Luis.
Hoping that didn't happen. Yeah, that's tough because we have a representative groups that are going through the process, that are identifying those individuals. But I think for me, we need to find someone who is innovative, and not just innovative in what community colleges are doing, but I think innovative in education. Our educational system is changing. The way that we learn is changing. And so we need someone to really think that forward-looking while also taking care of our financial sort of situation and aligning us to the state. And so I think if there's someone that doesn't really see it in that way, right, or at least has that vision in mind, then it's going to be very difficult for me to choose that person and not feel like we need to go back and find that, because we are really talking about the future of education, right? That's really kind of the moment in time that we're in. And so we need to find someone that really understands that and can move us forward in that way.
Thank you. Kira.
So I think that the new person should actually be forward-thinking as well. The only reason I would probably say a rejection is if the person is not well-rounded. I think we need someone that is innovative, someone is a great communicator, and someone that will be open to suggestions from the board, as well as have an open door policy with the faculty and staff. I think someone that, is totally not only coming from a college and an education background, but also has some type of entrepreneurship, leadership, innovation, and some type of finance background. I think we have to find someone that is well-rounded and that is very experienced in this type of situation.
Thanks. Shai?
Dr. Jeffrey's tenure there was a lot of crisis management. We had COVID during her tenure. We had a murder on our campus. We've had a very difficult fiscal situation that's been, up and down over her entire tenure. We've had issues with race relations on campus. And I think that her strength was being a rock in the middle of crisis and being able to calmly make decisions. And right now, as we approach the next few years, I'm hopeful that we're sort of at this nadir given our fiscal situation, and we'll be able to grow out of this and expand the college to serve our community and students. And that is, going to require a president with a vision for a positive vision for the future. And I think that those are two different strengths, both of which are important, but crisis management and, sort of a vision and positive growth-oriented president. And I'm looking at this moment of our college for somebody with a positive vision of growth for the college going forward.
Thanks. Oscar?
In my 22 years of public service, I've had the privilege of working on a national search to hire at least 3 or 4 superintendents for our public school system, and also city managers for the city of Santa Monica. I understand that, the criteria that we set out is very important. It should reflect our values, and that being said, people apply. The interview process, I think, we should always be open to having faculty, staff, students give input, to at least in the first round, and give guidance, to the governing board before they make the decision. I think, though, really important, this next president is probably going to come onto campus with worker morale probably being at the lowest that it's been in the last, 20 years. So you need to have someone that's pro-worker. They don't have to always give in to everything that, the bargaining units want, but they should be pro-worker in their heart, pro-union. That's something that I think is a very important attribute to have that track record of addressing worker morale.
Thank you. And Tom?
Well, the question is slightly flawed in that this board is going to select the new president
Maybe it'll be another
possibly in September. But to your point, and I've mentioned this in open session, much to the chagrin of some other board members, but I've said if the Search Committee brings forth candidates that we don't feel can handle a really tough job, that Oscar was spot on talking about morale, we're going to send them back. So the new board might be selecting a president, but it's one of the biggest events we're all going to be part of, and I can't stress how important it is that we get it right for the future of the college, especially I don't know if this person exists, but I hope they are. We'll know him when we see him or her, but I hope.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move to closing statements. Kira, you're up first.
Thank you, everyone, again, for this opportunity. Throughout my life, I've seen firsthand how education can change the trajectory of a person's future. It changed mine, and through my work in our community, I've had the privilege of helping others discover new opportunities through education, entrepreneurship, and service. As your trustee, I will lead with integrity, collaboration, and accountability. I will ask tough questions, listen to our students, faculty, and community, and always make decisions that put students' success first. I would be honored to earn your support, and together we can ensure Santa Monica College continues to open doors for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Oscar?
Yes. I've served 18 years on the school board. Every election to the school board came from your support, from the Santa Monica Democratic Club. So I want to thank you all very much, everyone that's on Zoom right now. I want to thank you all for that support because it allowed me to work on policies and programs that are vital to our student success around issues of equity, diversity in hiring, inclusion. Those are important values that I hold in my heart, and I hope that I can count on your support to continue to serve my community on the College Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Shai?
This club is so important to me, and I think the club reflects the values of the community here, and I've always been so proud to have the club support, win, lose, or draw, for every campaign, and bring those values to every campaign that I've ever run. And so I'd be really grateful for your support again as I run for re-election. And so thank you for considering that.
Thank you. Tom?
Yes, thanks everybody for attending both here and on Zoom. This amazing club supported me 4 years ago, and I'm asking them for support for another 4 years. If elected, I'll be the chair of the board the first year that we have a new president, and I want to work on finding new ways to support our new innovative ways to support our students and the wider community.
Thank you. And finally, Luis.
Just wanted to say thank you too. This moment doesn't escape me as someone who came from Guatemala across the border and is now able to seek public office. I'm just really just privileged and in such a high in that way. But I really, what I was saying earlier about my trajectory in life changed because of Santa Monica College, right? I was on my way to become a plumber and then a master's degree, a doctorate degree level later, and rising to the officer level within a major nonprofit, and spending 20 years in public policy, higher education, workforce development. This is the type of impact and this is the type of service that I want to create in my community. So I would be honored to have your vote and your endorsement as I move forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's give it up for the field. And if you guys can pose for Jay here, he's going to take your photo, and then the rent board can come up. We'll do your photo first after this one's done. Let's get the picture of you guys first so that you can run off the stage at the end. Okay, so finally tonight, our debate for the Rent Control Board. And following Brad Ewing's announcement a few minutes ago, we now have 4 candidates seeking 3 seats, with Danny Ivanov and Erica Leslie both running for City Council. And I'll take a moment here to mention that 3 of our incumbent Rent Control Board members who aren't seeking our endorsement tonight, Danny Ivanov, Kay Ambrose, and Phyllis Dudek, are here with us, so thank you for joining us. So tonight we have one incumbent, Kurt Gonska, running alongside 3 challengers, Soledad Marcial, Heather Thomason, and former Mayor Sue Himmelrich. So let's welcome them all to the stage. And I think you've all heard the rules now. We'll go through the questions, and if there's any rebuttals that you'd like to give after everyone gave their first response, that'll be the time to do it. Let's start with opening statements. So each get 1 minute, and we start with Soledad. Oh, you have to press that button for a second. There you go.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here tonight and giving us a portion of your precious time. My name is Soledad Marcial, and the reasons why I'm running are very personal and dear to me. First and foremost, while I was living in a rent control unit, one of my siblings fell ill, and I couldn't bring him to live with me. So my family and his friends were able to pull together and keep him housed. The other reason is because a few years after Costa-Hawkins took effect, we were starting to raise a family. So unfortunately, we had to make the hard decision to move from Santa Monica. Even with 2 incomes, we could not afford to stay. So, these are my reasons. I want to help people like myself to stay in Santa Monica who are now going through the struggle that I went.
Sue.
Well, that's perfect. Good evening, and thank you for everybody here. The room is cleared considerably. And thanks to everybody on Zoom. My name is Sue Himmelrich. I have been on the stage before running for City Council. I'm now here seeking your vote for Rent Control Board. I know that this is an unusual position to be in, but I've been working on renters' issues for at least 20 years, probably longer. Before I was on the city council, and I was on the city council and was the mayor of Santa Monica, I worked with LAF on many tenants issues. I believe in them, and I think that I can bring a lot to this. I've been a lawyer for 40 years. I've been an advocate for a long time. I've also have been service-oriented for my entire life. I've been a Democrat since 1971, dating myself, but I will bring to this board what I brought to the City Council, which is I will tell you the truth. I will work on issues for people who need work on their issues, and I'll bring creative solutions to their problems. That's why I'm running.
Thank you. Kurt.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kurt Gonska. I am currently on the Rent Control Board and running for re-election, and hoping to have the honor of receiving the Dem Club's endorsement again like I did in 2022. I know many of you have had the privilege of talking with a lot of you individually, but also it's always great to see new faces every year in the club growing, and so I look forward to getting to know the new members as well. For those of you who don't know me, I've come from Chicago originally. I've been in Santa Monica for 12 years now. I've only lived in Santa Monica since I've been in LA, and I plan to stay here forever because I love it so much. And I have worked professionally in politics and in government on political campaigns and in government offices. I've also worked in the entertainment industry and marketing and in production. And so I never thought of myself as somebody who would run for office myself, but 4 years ago, I decided to do it because it was such a good opportunity to have an impact here locally on a very specific issue, which is a huge issue of our day, which is housing. So I look forward to getting into that issue more and discussing what we've done and what I look forward to doing in the next term.
Thank you. And Heather.
Good evening, Democrats. My name is Heather Thomas, and I'm running for the Rent Control Board because I believe very strongly in rent control. It is our main form of affordability here. It is our main form of stability in Santa Monica. It brings socioeconomic diversity to our city, and it's under threat constantly, and I want to protect it. It's very personal for me because I lived the difference between market rate apartments and rent control apartments when I was a renter. When I was in my my second to last market rate apartment, I had my rent raised 50% in 1 year at one point. My husband and I couldn't afford that, and we had to leave. We downsized to a barely one bedroom, paying the same amount that we had been paying before for a much larger unit. And then 1 year later, our landlord decided to sell this not even one bedroom for $1 million and asked if we wanted it. It did not suit our life. So we selected a rent control apartment very intentionally, and we stayed there for 8 years. We got a dog, we had a baby, we saved, and we were able to move into a home, and it made all the difference.
Okay, thank you. What do you see as your what do you see as your role in your first year, Kurt, your 5th year, on the Rent Control Board, and how would you balance learning the legal and administrative structure of the agency with advancing your own personal policy goals? Soledad.
My first year as a newcomer, I would like to get out, and even though I know a lot of the community because Santa Monica is my hometown, but I would like to reach out more. I know that there is like the website, SMERS hotline, but I think that we also have to take into consideration that people sometimes work 2 jobs in order to live here. So making that gap smaller, I think, would be what I would work on.
Thank you. Heather.
Sorry, can you just repeat the question?
Yeah. What do you see as your role in the first year on the Rent Control Board? How would you balance learning the legal and administrative structure of the agency with your policy agenda or your goals?
Sure. Well, I will plan on continuing what I've started with the learning, which is talking to all the many wonderful people who are experts in this field that we have working for the agency and people that have worked for it before. I've had the privilege of talking to Tracy Condon and Denny Zane and Michael Soloff and Anastasia Foster and so many people. So I will continue learning. There's a tremendous amount to learn about the policy and all of these things. And while I'm doing that learning, I will work on, at a policy level, I hope to be educating people on what I am learning and how we can better inform our rent control residents about some of the forces that are coming at rent control, including some of the larger market rate housing state law bills.
Thank you. And Kurt, so you'll be the senior member of the Rent Control Board next year. How do you see your role playing into this, what we're talking about?
Yeah, so having been on the Rent Control Board for 4 years is obviously a tremendous amount of knowledge that I've gained over that time. And so I would look at my role being partially to help bring the new members of the board, the new commissioners, up to speed as quickly as possible to help guide them, and also to look to them for new ideas, because there's always a risk of people who are, who've been in office who just kind of keep doing the same thing. We always want to be looking for new ways to do things, for new ways to communicate. And I would also, for myself, and also recommend to new commissioners to really rely and spend time talking to the experts who we have in the rent control agency. We have a big staff. We have an executive director and a general counsel, both of which the board has hired in in general counsel this year, and the executive director in recent years. But there's a tremendous amount of knowledge there going back decades amongst the staff that we rely on every day, and they're a resource for us. And we should also look to other communities, both in terms of gaining their expertise, but also sharing ours with them.
Thanks, and Sue.
As a lawyer at Western Center on Law and Poverty, I have developed some familiarity with the legal ramifications of all of these housing issues, and indeed it allowed me on the City Council to bring things like certain tenant protections to the City Council that we codified. I'd like to do the same thing. I'm not somebody who will just sit back and not look at new issues. I'll be researching all the time. I'll be talking to people. I think that all of the things that we do will be a combination of fact and creative legal thinking, and I think that if you have enough people putting their minds to it, you can accomplish almost anything. So I'll be working in the way that I think I've always worked in the past, which is to try to think of creative solutions to problems that nobody has thought of before. Thank you.
Thank you. When state law limits local rent control or tenant protections that you believe are necessary, what should the Rent Control Board do? Should it work within those limits, advocate for changes to state law, or push for the strongest possible local interpretation of existing law?
Will you repeat that, John? I'm sorry.
Sure. When state law limits local rent control or tenant protections that you believe are necessary, what should the Rent Control Board do or prioritize? Should it work within those limits, advocate to changes for state law, or push for the strongest possible local interpretation of the existing law? Heather, you're up first.
My answer will be brief, all of the above.
Okay, thank you. Kurt?
I agree with all of the above, but I think the most important one is to look for ways to have the widest interpretation that we can in a lot of cases. We want to be careful that we're not putting our local rules at legal jeopardy, but sometimes there's value to pushing the envelope a little bit and seeing if there isn't case law, for example, what are things we can do within reason to bring additional rights, additional protections to our tenants in ways that can make sure that we're preserving what locally we want here, not just listening to what's coming out of Sacramento. So I think that one's really crucial.
Thanks. Sue?
I agree, all of the above, and this is sort of my wheelhouse. I'm good at figuring out solutions to difficult problems and figuring out different ways to look at barriers created by the state to prevent us from doing what we've been trying to do in Santa Monica for many, many, many years, and I'll keep doing it.
Thanks, Soledad.
I guess we all agree on that, but definitely we really have to push the envelope in reappealing laws like Costa-Hawkins. You know, I think that we really need to make a bigger movement, not just for Santa Monica, but if we want something like that to pass, we have to move California.
Thank you. The Rent Control Board has quasi-judicial responsibilities deciding petitions, but it's also an elected body that can advocate for policy changes. Where should it draw the line between neutral adjudication of cases and policy advocacy on housing issues? Kurt.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question because I think that in some ways that line is drawn for us. So, for example, when we have appeals come before the board, we have a very specific and a very narrow responsibility there, which is essentially to look at what the hearing officer did in terms of making a determination in a particular case. And we cannot substitute our own viewpoint, or if we would have done something slightly differently or awarded a different decreased amount than the hearing officer did, that's not within our power to change. But we look at it to make sure that the hearing officer did everything appropriate and that there actually is evidence to support their decision. So in those cases, it's a very narrow scope. However, a lot of what we do is looking at our regulations, and we can, just as a board with the majority, a 3 to 5 person vote, change our regulations. And we do that often. I think we've been very active doing that over the past 4 years in ways that can make protections stronger for tenants and still be fair to landlords. So, and then there's the piece of advocating for our positions. Even if it's something that's in Sacramento or nationally, we can make a strong case for what we want to see and even vote formally to support or oppose legislation.
Thanks. Heather.
Can you just repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, sure. The Rent Control Board has quasi-judicial responsibilities deciding petitions, but it's also an elected body that can advocate for policy changes. Where should it draw the line between neutral adjudication of cases and public advocacy on housing issues?
I appreciate what Kurt just said about the responsibilities for the adjudication. And I also think that at the advocacy level, it's sort of a question of how much time can we put in and what can we, who can we reach and who can we collaborate with. And I look forward to doing all of that.
Okay, thanks. Sue?
I'm afraid I know a little about this legally, and there actually is a strong line. So when you're in your adjudicative mode, you aren't allowed to be putting your advocacy there. On the other hand, all of these cases that the board hears gives you a special insight into how the rules might need to change or what other bigger policy changes we need to be advocating for. And so I understand that there's a strong line and basically the two don't overlap. On the other hand, I will use the cases that come before the board and maybe even the ones that aren't on appeal to look at ways that the law needs to be changed.
Thank you. And Soledad?
Like Kurt said, I've been to a couple of meetings and I can see that the line is very clear. When you're there, you're presented with precise information, with proof of what's happening. So you have to be neutral and to look at all that stuff, and that's what staff does. And so therefore, the line is very clear, I think.
Great. Okay. So beyond setting rents, the Rent Control Board can support broader tenant protections. If you could accomplish passing only one major tenant protection during your term that Santa Monica does not have today, what would it be, and why is that the most important change for renters? Sue.
repeal Costa-Hawkins and Ellis. Is that a good answer? I think we would do everything we could to preserve tenants' rights at the same time that we guarantee landlords a free, fair return on their property, and that's what we want to do. We want to have a thriving community where everybody does well. On the other hand, Costa-Hawkins and Ellis have hurt us for 25 years, and we simply need to have the shackles taken off and be able to do the law the way we should be able to do the law and make it fair to both sides in a way that we think it's fair and not in the way that the state has decided it would be fair.
Thanks. Kurt?
I very much agree with what Sue said. Costa-Hawkins and Ellis need to be repealed. And just one caveat that I would add to that is I think we need to do it in a smart way where we are not decreasing the amount of housing production, because I think many people agree that the solution to the affordability issue is more housing. We desperately need that. So, but there are definitely ways that we can discuss, and we have discussed, where you can do that. You can repeal Costa-Hawkins and still support additional housing being built. And then one thing that we can't necessarily do ourselves with the board, but that I want to highlight, we just sent to City Council a series of charter amendments that we want to be on the ballot. And one of the things that those charter amendments would do is to allow tenants to bring in other people to live with them in their home without the landlord's permission. And that's a really crucial thing for affordability and for just family structure. So those are two really important areas that I would focus on.
Thank you. Soledad?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. If you could accomplish passing only one major tenant protection during your term that Santa Monica does not have today, what would it be, and why is that the most important change for tenants, or for renters, actually?
I don't know if this will fall under tenant protections, and I think that I would have to work with other parts of code enforcement or something. But what comes to my mind is I've seen deteriorating rent control buildings. People should have a home that is safe to live in. And how do I go about doing that and taking care of those buildings and bringing them up to code?
Great, thank you. And Heather?
I will echo the Costa-Hawkins and Ellis repeal. And then, because that was all said really well, just move on to one of the charter amendment proposals that I think is really important is the rental debt threshold amendment. And the reason that that one feels really important to me is that if we were to get that passed, we would have more time to be able to help people with their small rental debt. And we have a program set up to assist people with that, but it's hard to reach them in time. We don't necessarily know that it's happening, and this would give us time to reach them. It's a phenomenal program that Measure GS funded, and that would be great.
Thank you. Rent control exists to protect tenants, but the board also has legal obligations to ensure landlords receive a fair return. Where do you think landlords have legitimate concerns today in Santa Monica, and how would you balance those concerns with tenant protections? Start with Soledad.
Well, at the hearing, June 25th, I heard a lot of the a lot of the landlords that were there. Their concern is that they're going to have overcrowded units. And the law is very clear. There's only a specific amount of people for safety reasons that could be in the unit. So there is, so that wouldn't happen, but they're afraid of that, that's going to happen. But the law is very clear, and we're here to make sure that that doesn't happen. Sorry.
Thank you. Heather.
I think that given the amendments that are being considered, one of the concerns of landlords is that they know who is living in their apartments. And I think that I believe that the amendments are crafted in ways that are going to ensure that they do. So I don't know how legitimate of a concern that is. I have heard that, or I have learned, I should say, that in their concerns about making a fair return, there's a process for landlords to be able to appeal the general adjustment if they need to, and that it basically hasn't happened in 10 years. So at that level of concern, it feels like Santa Monica is addressing their needs really well.
Thanks. Sue.
So I'm going to address this to fair return, which is what I understand the question is. And I do understand that many of our laws were in reaction to landlords claiming they couldn't get a fair return. And one of the issues is that if you can't decontrol a unit when it's vacant, that you're never going to get a fair return. I think that there are ways to work with that don't necessarily mean that units have to be fully decontrolled. I also think that we could be working with rent control landlords in our older rent control stock to balance rent control with deed-restricted affordable housing, in which case they would have some sort of guaranteed return on investment. I actually think that at the moment the reason we haven't had any decreased petitions is because they're doing well enough with their decontrolled units, and 75% of our units have been decontrolled. So I don't think we have a return on investment problem right now.
Thanks. Kurt?
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I think a couple of candidates have noted that we have an entire part of our existing regulations that were from the original rent control law that lay out the procedure for landlords to get a rent increase above the existing MAR if they're not getting a fair rate of return. And as was mentioned, I mean, certainly in my 4 years, that's happened 0 times, and it's been much longer than that because landlords are getting a fair return. If they just have a few units that turn over that are at market rate, even if they have many long-term tenants that are paying well below market rate, they're earning their fair rate of return. If they weren't, they would apply to the board, they would get those rent increases. And the fact that they're not tells us all we need to know there. So I will say that I've talked to many landlords in my 4 years, and my door is always open to hearing their concerns and considering ways that we can tweak regulations that we're thinking about to make it fair for landlords too, but I'm not concerned about them not receiving a fair rate in today's market.
Okay, thank you. The Rent Control Agency collects significant data on housing and tenancy. What additional information should the agency collect or publish? And how would you balance transparency, policy making, and tenant privacy? Kurt.
Well, one thing that's happening now, the City Council passed creating a registry for non-controlled units. And the Rent Control Agency has been working closely with city staff to help them with what we've learned over the years with our registry. And I think there's going to be a real opportunity to, even though those two databases will be maintained separately by different staff, because the Rent Control Agency is independent of the City Council, there'll be a lot of opportunity to look at both of those data sets side by side and see where tenants are facing different issues or being impacted in different ways depending on if they have rent control or not. So I think really being in sync on those two databases, getting it launched properly, and then looking at the data that comes in will be really important.
Thank you. Heather.
I think this is answering your question. One of the pieces of data that I noticed in the annual report that was really interesting was the average buyout data for rent control tenants. And that seems like something that we could be publishing in a particular way to really help our rent control tenants. When they receive buyout offers, there's a bunch of information that they have to get. And including right now the minimum buyout levels that the city has established, but giving them the average buyout levels, which are part of the data that we have established or collected, would give them an opportunity to have an even stronger position in negotiations with, with their landlords.
Thank you. Sue?
Yeah, I'm really pleased about the rent registry. I think more data is better. I think that the Rent Control Board does a pretty good job of masking data. I've worked with their data for a long time. And for those of you who have not looked at the Rent Control Board annual reports, I have to say that they're a real encyclopedia of information relating to housing in Santa Monica that I use time and time again. I think the privacy aspects are really important when it comes to all of this data. But I do think that registering all the units in the city will give us a fuller picture of how we should handle our housing needs and perhaps mistakes we're making going forward. I think we have to be ready to say that we aren't perfect and maybe we've made mistakes in looking at the data or not looking at the data. But I think that having a more fulsome registry and a more fulsome database will help us a lot.
Thank you. Soledad?
I agree 100% with Sue. I mean, the annual report has everything from the market rate, 76.5, I think it was, and then like the 44% that are rent burden. So like looking at all the data there, I think they're doing an amazing job with that. So.
Okay. Final question before closing. This board will include experienced public officials and potentially first-time elected officials as well. What perspective do you think is currently missing from the Rent Control Board, and how would you change the way the board makes decisions by being on the board? Kurt, we'll start with you.
I think that what's really crucial is that we have a mix of people from different backgrounds on the board, and I think that ebbs and flows. I think we as we see people who are leaving the board for either being termed out or, which by the way is one of the charter amendments that were sent to the city council to increase that to 3 terms. But whether we see people leave for that reason or to run for other offices, at times, I think now we are losing some of the diversity that we have on the board. And so definitely I would like to make sure that if we're not going to have that in the form of a commissioner, we're seeking out those voices from the community and from the staff to make sure that those voices are still being heard and those perspectives are still being put into our regulations.
Thank you. Soledad?
Do you mind repeating the question?
No problem.
I'm sorry.
It's late.
What perspective do you think is currently missing from the Rent Control Board, and how would your presence on the board change the way board makes decisions?
I think that the perspective from someone who's been at all levels as a renter would make a difference, because then you really know firsthand how decisions affect the people that you are trying to help or the people that you're advocating for.
Okay, thank you. Sue?
I believe that many voices make decisions better. I think that the more opinions you can have and the more diversity of voices you can have in any room, the better your decision is going to be, because you have more perspectives. I know that I'm coming into this being on the older, experienced public official end of it, right? And I accept that. I realize that what I'm doing is unusual here, but I do think that, and I've been a good mentor to other people over the years, and I think I can continue to be a good mentor in this capacity, and I'd like to do so.
Thanks. Heather?
Yeah, agree wholeheartedly with the importance of the diversity of experiences on the board, and I've been really impressed with the current board and how well everybody works together and works, actually on the board, but outside of the board too. It's inspiring, and so I hope for that in the new incarnation of a board. As for me, I think that the experience that I talked about at the beginning with having been a market rate renter and then a rent control renter and then a homeowner is a valuable perspective. Also, having young children growing up right now is a very interesting way to see the world and its problems and solutions. So.
Okay, let's go to closing statements. We have 30 seconds.
Wait, did you do that question?
He did. He started. Okay, Sue, you get to start. Closing statement, 30 seconds.
Well, I guess as the older experienced public official, I get to go first. So thank you for having me tonight, and thank you to this club for supporting me in everything that I've ever done. I've never done anything in my very short but meaningful political career without the Santa Monica Democratic Club. It has been my home base, and I appreciate what you do, and my time is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Heather?
Yeah, I'll just say thank you. Also, it's wonderful to be here, and this club has taken on increasing importance to me in the last year. I really can't believe, actually, at some level, how very involved and how much I love being here. So I would be honored to have the endorsement of the club, and thank you.
Thanks so much. Kurt?
Yeah, thank you everyone for being here tonight, and I'm excited for the opportunity to earn the endorsement again this cycle. I think I've been really happy to have had the opportunity to work on a lot of really important things over the last 4 years, having served on two really important subcommittees, one that we revamped the decrease standards, basically the amounts that people can get rent decreases for various issues in their apartments. We created a mechanism for making that automatic, that adjustment. And then I talked tonight about the charter amendment subcommittee that we're currently working on. So I want to make sure that I continue that energy and that activism within the next 4 years. One quick thing I'll mention is just trying to modernize our technology in the office in a public-facing way in terms of how people can submit decreased petitions, for example. So thank you for the opportunity to talk tonight, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thanks. Last word, Soledad.
Thank you guys again, and you know what, if you guys do support me in any way, shape, or form, I would be greatly appreciated. I am willing to learn. I am willing to be the voice of the community. I am willing to go out there and talk to people and help people, and because we need that, you know. And mentorship, you know, from people here that have a lot of knowledge, that is very valued to me as well.
Thank you. Let's give it up for the Rent Control Board candidates. Okay, so before everybody heads home tonight, just 3 reminders. Join us this Saturday morning for the 4th of July parade. We can all march in the parade together. Come back here next Wednesday on this very stage for our city council debate. And then on July 15th, we'll gather again virtually to vote on our local endorsements. Thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you to our candidates for participating. Thank you to everyone watching from home. Have a wonderful evening. We're adjourned.
Thank you, John.